This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. COVID deaths return, but there will be no lockdown. Gun battle with poachers sees 2 being arrested. And traffic police are told to be more polite. First, more from our main story. The kingdom has recorded the highest ever Omicron total in the past week, now being quoted as the Omicron surge. Mounting cases are causing widespread concern. For the first time in 6 weeks, Cambodia recorded deaths, with 2 people dying on Wednesday. But Prime Minister Hun Sen yesterday dispelled fears circulating that there would be another lockdown due to the high number of rising infections of the Omicron variant. He also addressed people's outrage over the cost of the home treatment drug Monopoly and called for sellers from the private sector to stop raising prices indiscriminately, basically profiteering. The Premier went on to say he's heard a rumour that has been spread saying that the government will put Phnom Penh into lockdown, as it did in April of last year. He dismissed this rumour confidently by confirming that he would never sign an order to lock down the city, or even a market or any area, no matter how many cases of infection there are. He said, "In April last year, I decided to lock down the city because it was an emergency situation and our vaccination rate was still very low back then. Now it is different, so people do not need to rush to stock up on food or any other supplies." He also announced his approval of the vaccination of 3 to 5-year-olds on Thursday. He said that the major decision was made based on findings that 25% of those who have been infected with the Omicron variant are young children under the age of 5. This will be a contentious issue for some, but global results so far show the benefits to be very positive. Poachers have been arrested after a gun battle with rangers in Mondulkiri. Military police and rangers found themselves in a fierce gunfight with poachers earlier this week. The men opened up on the law officials with an AK-47. The incident occurred on Monday, and fortunately none of the officers were hurt. And the criminals who engaged in the fight with the rangers were arrested. The rangers themselves were just on a regular patrol in Mondulkiri Wildlife Sanctuary when they stumbled across the poachers, and much to their surprise, a gunfight ensued. Provincial Environmental Department told the Khmer Times that 2 suspects were sent to the provincial court on Monday. When Provincial Environmental Department rangers entered the wildlife sanctuary, they encountered 2 armed suspects with equipment used for hunting of animals and birds within the forest, they told us. They added that when the rangers arrived and saw the suspects' motorcycles near the forest, the rangers entered into the forest. And when the suspects saw the rangers, they opened fire. The rangers were joined by military police, and they found an AK-47 automatic rifle with another improvised gun, plenty of ammunition and 2 motorcycles, which are all being held as evidence. The Environmental Department added that forestry crimes such as laying traps and hunting in the wildlife sanctuary is still going on, but on a much smaller scale, after strict measures were implemented by the Provincial Environmental Department with wildlife organisations to prevent forestry crimes, adding that there has been a steady year-on-year decline. There has been growing resentment among citizens at the sometimes heavy-handed attitude by some traffic police officers, especially in Phnom Penh. People have complained of mistreatment and, even on occasions, abusive behaviour. A taxi driver who spoke to the Khmer Times said, "I drive my taxi every day, and I have seen traffic officers get very angry. They shout threats, kick motorcycles, and even throw their walkie-talkies at the drivers." A resident of Menchai district echoed this sentiment when saying, "My daughter rides her motorcycle wearing a helmet, so I don't understand why the police stop my daughter," and used profane and abusive language. It is simply not acceptable. This has caused the National Police to give a warning this week to all officers that they must respect the people, especially when they are travelling, after the numerous allegations that traffic police are demanding money from drivers under the pretext of a fine. Traffic police officer Captain Sa Lee, stationed in Phnom Penh, said, "I have been a policeman for about 32 years. I have done my best to respect all the travellers in the city. I have never hurt anyone, even though that I know people on occasions do wrong. I always try to show my respect. It is not good for us if we force people to pay money to put it in our own pockets." Captain Lee added, 20 years ago, we could do anything we like, forcing people to pay us money. Some of our policemen would even beat people up on the street. But we have to follow the law and order now, and cannot just extort money from people like before. The situation is one known to all in the capital, as there are more fines being issued and more officers than ever before, looking for any and all offending drivers. Barbarity takes many forms, but to force someone into slavery so you can harvest their blood has to be one of the most inhumane and bizarrest schemes that I have ever heard of. A Chinese national alleges 58.com in China is the reason for him being forced into what is called blood slavery in Cambodia. Recent reports of a Chinese man from Jiangxi province who was kidnapped and used as a blood slave by a gang after he refused to participate in online fraud activities in the Cambodian city of Sihanoukville. The case has shocked not only authorities, but also Chinese nationals. Further details in this harrowing case are that the victim attributed the incident partly to his blind belief in a job advertisement that he saw on 58.com, a popular Chinese job website. He claimed that in June 2021 he was taken to Cambodia against his will. He was resold many times due to his refusal to join an online fraud operation. He then had 1.5 litres of blood taken from him every 6 weeks, in total 7 times since August of last year. This is far in excess of the recommended withdrawal rate and is extremely dangerous. It stretches credulity to imagine this man's plight. He was bought and sold like a head of cattle, only to end up in a strange town in a locked room, strapped to a chair, having his own blood drained from him. On Wednesday night, the Chinese embassy in Cambodia issued a notice on the case, saying that both countries' police force are cooperating to carry out an investigation and will strive to solve the case. It was almost a year ago that the world's media spotlight was turned onto a solitary elephant named Kavan. The international singing star Cher had highlighted his plight. He was literally being tortured to death by the mistreatment of his handlers in a zoo in Pakistan. But what happened to him after the press had left and Cher's private jet had disappeared over the horizon? Well, I travelled to Cambodia Wildlife Sanctuary close to Anglong Ven to meet him and to see how he's doing. And here he is. What a truly magnificent animal. And the video footage you're looking at is quite the exclusive, because the head keeper told me I was the first person who wasn't a keeper to be allowed into Kavan's enclosure. And there was a solid reason as to why no one's allowed in, because he, due to his torment, has actually killed 2 people. But now, relocated to the Cambodia Wildlife Sanctuary, all has changed, including his disposition. He's still sometimes a very nervous elephant, but as his keeper Pedro explains, What we have here is a much happier elephant. How long did it take you to get Kavan over from Pakistan?
The whole process from go to O took over 6 years.
And when you saw Kavan in Pakistan, what sort of condition was he in?
He was just a mistreated elephant. He was in poor condition. He was angry. He wasn't, there was nothing going good for him at all. He was shackled. He had chains, and his partner had actually died from gangrene from chains around her legs. So, there was a possible threat there as well.
How difficult was the journey to bring the elephant to your sanctuary here?
It was an arduous journey. There was a big team that was involved in it. So there was 4 Paws Free the Wild and a big group of elephant experts to get him here, basically. So a lot of work.
And it must have cost a lot of money, because I believe that a private plane was used.
That's right. We had to hire a jumbo jet to get him here. I think there was $500,000. The enclosure we built cost close to $300,000. And the costs are still ongoing.
How would you compare Kavan now to that elephant all those years ago in Pakistan?
He's a completely different elephant. You wouldn't recognise him from the elephant in a zoo. He was stressed the whole time. He was unhappy. He was unhealthy. There was nothing good for him there at all. So now he's got the opposite. He's well cared for. He's on a good diet. He lives in his own jungle, basically. So he's a happy elephant.
So it seems the intervention of a celebrity was of huge benefit to this elephant. And no more is he the loneliest elephant in the world, because as he's walking away now, he actually has 2 lady elephant friends. And meeting him, I can only say, was a great privilege. We will be keeping an eye on Kavan and keeping you updated. And if you wish to know more or offer some assistance to the Cambodian Wildlife Sanctuary, they can be contacted via their Facebook page. Now it's time for a quick dip into the world of sport, starting off with the Olympics. The Winter Olympics has now ended, and these are the final results. Norway ahead, and by some considerable distance, 37 points against their next rival Germany with 27. China had an incredible run at the last, coming from 6th place last week and ending up as 3rd. And as the host nation, I'm sure they will be elated. The United States slipped from 3rd to 4th, and obviously that will be a disappointment. The rest of the pack pretty much stayed the same. France and Switzerland in the lower 10. It really was a fantastic games, and the closing ceremony was a spectacular. And now here's what's been happening in the Premier League in England. And it's the briefest of looks at the Premier League table. Man City out in front, only dropping 1 game from the last 5, but Liverpool have gone even better, winning all 5 of their last games. Chelsea and Man U keeping up some pressure, but they are going to have to do better. The middle of the table looks pretty much the same. Arsenal and Wolves are playing this weekend, so that should be a fiery match. My team, Crystal Palace, are falling. They're now down to 13th place, and they haven't won a single game of their last 5. They're performing about as well as a slug making its way home via a salt mine. Looking at the weather, and only one word dominated this week, and that was cold. And looking at the table, we see there is more of the same to come. Temperatures dropping to a mind-numbing 75 degrees at the weekend. But have no fear, as the old 1-2 parry of heat and humidity will return with a high of 90 degrees by mid-next week. Warm winter clothes are like rainbows in Cambodia. They never stay out for long. This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by downloading our app from your app store. You can also follow us on Facebook, Telegram and WhatsApp. You could also contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Friday for your weekly roundup.